TFA fam. It's your boy Kev back again with another waiver wire video. So today we're going to be discussing all the top waiver ads for this week. And let's just jump right into it, shall we? No time to wait. No reason to waste any time. It is currently halftime of the San Francisco and Packers game. So let's just next week. Now, this Dallas Cowboys defense has looked a little bit better now. This is before Monday Night Football, so we'll see how they look this week. But as things currently stand, I absolutely love Sam Darnold. I think he should be rostered more than 21% of leagues. I think we've seen enough from him now to know that this offense is going to be very, very good moving forward. So I am all aboard Sam Darnold. I think he should be in consideration as a weekly start every week, and their schedule remains amazing moving forward. And on top of that, Christian McCaffrey is out, so I think that is probably going to lean a little bit more on the pass catchers. We will talk about that once we get to the running backs, but Christian McCaffrey will be out at least a couple of weeks. Moving on, Derek Carr. Still only rostered in 53% of leagues. They get the Chargers this week. Really good matchup. And this Raiders offense has just looked really good so far through 3 games of the season. They beat Miami today in overtime, completed 26 of 43 passes for 386 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 INT. He's averaging 23 fantasy points per game and gets a really good matchup Monday night against the Chargers. And they are currently 19th in pass DVOA. And, this offense with all their weapons with Waller and Bryan Edwards seemingly coming up clutch on every last drive of the game. Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow. This offense has just looked really good so far, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. So this Chargers defense is good, but I definitely think that this offense can get going once again on Monday Night Football. So if Derek Carr happens to be out there, I think he is in consideration this week. Next up is Teddy Bridgewater. He didn't really do anything today. Had a pretty quiet day, but they didn't really need to do anything against the Jets. I mean, the Jets really couldn't do anything all day. He only completed 19 of 25 passes for 235 yards and no touchdowns. But the Broncos do face off against the Ravens this week, and the Ravens have been hit pretty hard by injury, and they're 24th in pass DVOA. So I don't mind Teddy Bridgewater as a streaming option this upcoming week. Daniel Jones, it really wasn't a great game today against the Falcons. Of course, Daniel Jones, lets us down a little bit. It wasn't terrible. I think he had like 16 fantasy points, so it wasn't the end all be all. But they also doesn't have a great matchup this week against the Saints, who are 12th in pass DVOA, and the Saints just absolutely crushed the Patriots today. So this you don't really know whatever you're going to get from the Saints defense, the Saints offense. But as things stand, I think Daniel Jones, who continues to rack up yards on the ground and get opportunities. So, Daniel Jones is more of a middling QB2 this week. But if you're in a deeper format, possibly a super flex, I think Daniel Jones is an option. I put Taylor Heineke on here. He's only rostered in 6% of league, but they do get a really good matchup at Atlanta. But I think he's really hard to trust. You'd have to be pretty desperate to play Taylor Heineke. And that kind of wraps up where we are at quarterback. So let's jump over to the running backs. Now, there's not a lot of running backs to really talk about. Chuba Hubbard, obviously with Christian McCaffrey going down, if you look at the snaps last week post CMC's exit, he played 30 snaps to Freeman's 10. He rushed 10 times for 52 yards and hauled in 3 of 5 targets for 27 yards. CMC is only expected to miss a few weeks here. So I think that I wouldn't waste heavy fab on him. Excuse me, I am sick. Apologize. So I would not waste heavy fab budget on Chuba Hubbard because he's only going to be out a couple of weeks, okay? And so there's no reason to go out and waste a bunch of fab on Chuba Hubbard because you're looking at a week, possibly 2 weeks at most for Chuba Hubbard, right? So, I think you can add him but I would not go out and waste 30, 40, 50% of my fab to get Chuba Hubbard because this is a very short-term injury for CMC. And not to mention the fact that this is a Thursday night game that they played. So that gives him a little extra time to get ready. So I wouldn't be surprised if he only misses 1 week here for Christian McCaffrey. So Chuba Hubbard, I don't mind adding him. The other guy is Zach Moss. He's only rostered in 53% of leagues. I thought that was a mistake. I checked both sides. Absolutely true. He out-touched Devin Singletary today, 16-12, rushed 13 times for 60 yards. He also added 3 passes for 31 yards and a touchdown. Bills take on Houston, at Kansas City, and at Tennessee over the next 3 games. So really good matchups moving forward for this Buffalo Bills offense. And yes, they do throw the ball a ton. I should not be doing this sick. I need a break, but it's fine. We'll keep it going. I apologize for the coughing. He does make for a fine low-end RB2. I think a couple stashes you could look at. Kenny Gainwell, only rostered in 34% of leagues. He has not played yet. Obviously, they will be playing tomorrow night. But I think in a PPR format, Kenny Gainwell makes a lot of sense. Should be rostered in more leagues than this. I think he's going to have a role every single week. And I think he's like a Nyheim Hines type of ad. Peyton Barber, rostered in 6% of leagues. He did have a big day today, but I just cannot mess with Peyton Barber. He rushed 23 times for 111 yards and 1 touchdown. He also hauled in 3 of 5 for 31 yards in a good matchup or in a good game today. But Josh Jacobs very well could be back next week. So I am not messing with Peyton Barber. Do not go out and rush to add Peyton Barber. I know some people might call him a must-add. He's not a must-add whatsoever. Josh Jacobs will be back soon enough, and he will go back to being the third option in this backfield. So great game for Peyton Barber, but not somebody I'm looking to add long-term. Darrell Williams, I just kind of add him. I think he's a decent stash. He's getting some opportunities in this backfield, though Clyde Edwards-Helaire finally bounced back today, and we'll talk about that later in the week. But Darrell Williams, I think, is worthy. Tony Jones and Malcolm Brown are all kind of secondary ads, guys that I think in 12 to 14 team leagues you should be looking at, and some really deep stashes. Larry Roundtree, J.J. Taylor. James White did exit today with a hip injury, so we'll have to see on that. So he could end up being the pass-catching running back here moving forward. Royce Freeman, Salvon Ahmed, Jeremy McNichols, kind of the same thing. It's more of a 14, 16 team ad if I'm going to add those guys. So let's move on to the wide receivers, shall we? So at wide receiver, first up, our boy Matty called it. He had him on wide receiver cornerback matchups. You should watch that every single week. He was one of those guys that he had. Manny Sanders only rostered 25% on Yahoo, 24% on ESPN. Hauled in 5 of 6 targets, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was 12th in air yards heading into this week, so we were kind of seeing what was coming, and he finally exploded this week. He's averaged 7 targets and 64 yards through the first 3 games of the season, and I think he's a weekly flex option with Buffalo's pass-heavy offense. And then Christian Kirk, still only rostered in 51% of leagues, had a really good game today. Of course, Rondale Moore did absolutely nothing, but hauled in 7 receptions, 104 yards, no touchdowns, 17 PPR points. He was tied with Edmonds in targets with 8 and has at least 64 yards in every game this season. So if Christian Kirk is out there, I think he's a viable flex option moving forward in this offense. The game plan today for the Cardinals is absolutely horrendous. I don't know what they were doing, but Christian Kirk had himself a day. So I think those are the 2 really standout guys that I think deserve to be owned in pretty much any 10-team league and above. Now the rest of these guys, Cole Beasley, had himself a really good game today. He hauled in 11 receptions, 98 yards, always a play in PPR formats. He scored 14, 7, and 20, and has 30 targets in his first 3 games. But he has a very low touchdown ceiling. He's not a guy that's going to score a lot of touchdowns. So PPR formats, I value him higher. But I think in standard league, stuff like that, I think Cole Beasley's a little bit less of somebody that I'm looking for. Hunter Renfrow has quietly kind of went about his business, targeted 6 times, yelled in 5 of them for 77 yards on a score in their overtime win against the Dolphins. He has scored double-digit fantasy points in all 3 games this year, and he's racked up at least 60 yards and 6 targets in every game as well. So PPR formats, I think Hunter Renfrow really deserves to be kind of somebody we should be talking about more in terms of just I think at least as like a weekly flex option. He's only rostered in 11% of leagues as well. So I do like Hunter Renfrow as long as his Raider offense continues to roll. Marquez Callaway. Oh, I had the wrong one. Anyways, Marquez Callaway, only rostered in 37% of leagues. He was targeted 5 times for 41 yards, but this is really hard to trust. I think he's a very low volume play, okay? Because right now, they've only thrown the ball 24 times over the past 2 games, right? So they're just not throwing the ball a ton, so there's not a lot of ceiling there. And so until that number goes up, I think Marquez Callaway is hard to trust. But it does prove that he is worthy to be on your team. He was targeted inside the red zone, led the team in targets with 5, hauled in 4 for 41 and a touchdown today. So it's good to see Marquez Callaway, the preseason hype train pay off a little bit. Brian Edwards, targeted 5 times, 3 receptions for 89 yards, but most of his production didn't come until the final drive of overtime. It seems like until they need him absolutely the most is when they target Brian Edwards. I think a breakout game is coming for Brian Edwards. And so I do like Brian Edwards, somebody that, rostering in a 12-team league, have on your bench because I think better days are ahead for him. But right now it is a pretty wide open in terms of all the guys they are targeting. So it makes them a little bit harder to trust and really harder to put in your lineup. AJ Green continues to get targets, and he did have over 100 yards today for the Cardinals while DeAndre Hopkins was banged up. But again, I don't know if he's somebody that I could really trust moving forward. I don't mind usually utilizing him now, but I think he's just at most a flex option. Terrace Marshall went 4 for 48. I think you can see more volume with Christian McCaffrey out these next couple of weeks in a matchup where they're really going to have to open up this offense. One, they're going to be able to run the ball as much against Dallas next week. So I think Terrace Marshall, he definitely should still be on your bench, but I don't know if he's somebody you're going to be able to trust moving forward. And then the last couple of guys, McCole Hardman, Tim Patrick, though both of those guys are wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 types, but in right matchups, I don't mind. And same with Jalen Reagor. Deep leagues, like 14, 16-team leagues, Van Jefferson continues to get opportunities as the number 3 wide receiver. Kadarius Toney, we're going to have to monitor with the injuries there. Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard both left today for the Giants. So Kadarius Toney could be involved much more in this offense. This Giants this Giants offense cannot avoid injury. I don't know what is going on there, but every year it seems like half these guys are always hurt. Kadarius Toney, obviously the first-round pick, so maybe he gets more involved moving forward. Deshaun Jackson hauled in 3 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. I just don't think you're going to be able to trust him on a weekly basis. I think it's going to be very, very hit or miss on when you can trust him, but it was good. I mean, he really could have had a bigger day. They missed him a couple of times, and they finally connected on a deep touchdown. But Deshaun Jackson, even though, he is 31 years old, still has some juice left in those legs. So I don't love adding him in a 12-team, 10-team league, but I think if you're desperate, I don't mind it. And then Anthony Miller, Josh Palmer, Byron Pringle, those are more 14, 16-team league ads. And last but not least, let's move over to tight end. We actually have some guys to talk about this week. Mike Gesicki, the number 2 scoring tight end this week, gets ending next week. He caught 12 passes on 12 targets for 86 yards, 18.6 PPR points. So far, he is the number 2 scoring tight end this week and really looks to be Jacoby Brissett's security blanket moving forward. So I like Mike Gesicki, 56% rostered. I know a lot of people have probably dropped him because he hasn't really done anything through the first 2 weeks of the season. But if he's sitting out there, I like him, especially with Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starting quarterback, at least for the next 2 weeks moving forward, while Tua is rehabbing with this rib injury. So I like Mike Gesicki. Pat Freiermuth, terrible on my part with the spell check there. Freiermuth, it is Freiermuth. Anyways, hauled in 3 of 5 targets for 22 yards and a touchdown. With all the injuries to the pass catchers, Juju left. Deontay Johnson's obviously hurt. The rookie is a decent option at tight end on 12-team formats. He did catch a touchdown today. So I don't hate it. And with how bad tight end really is, I mean, it's not hard to envision playing one of these guys just because it is so hard to trust most of these guys. So in a decent matchup, I don't mind Pat Freiermuth. And Gerald Everett, he also 554, 10 PPR points today. Kind of hit or miss. Had a good week 1, really kind of bombed week 2, then bounced back again in week 3. So I don't mind him. And then Dawson Knox, quietly only 4% rostered, 449 and 1 with 14.9 PPR points. He does have 12 targets through 3 weeks. And on an offense, they're going to continue to throw the ball at a really high rate. I don't mind targeting Dawson Knox in deeper formats. I think in, again, 12, 14-team leagues, I don't mind Dawson Knox because let's be honest, the tight end landscape is an absolute wasteland, and he's put up some decent numbers so far through the first 3 games. So I don't mind Dawson Knox, especially as a red zone threat down inside the inside the red zone. So that will pretty much wrap up the list. Let's see what we got in here. Walito, AO, Mr. Wong, time to drop Rondale Moore. Absolutely not time to drop Rondale Moore, boys and girls. It was a terrible game for Rondale Moore, no doubt. But there's better games coming. I don't know what they were doing today. It was really, I think, I know I saw it the first half. Like, they'd run more than they passed the ball. I'm like, what are we doing here? This is the Jaguars' terrible defense. Why are we doing this? They were, and so I didn't understand what the game plan was for today. But I think we are not dropping Rondale Moore. It was one bad game. We're not worried about it. We're going to keep it moving. And you are Porsche. I already dropped Sanders. That was not good. Should have waited a little bit longer. The writing was on the wall. One thing we should always look for in wide receivers is air yards, market share of air yards, obviously target share, and then yards per route run and yards after the catch are kind of the big things there for me. So, anyways. Yep. Hey, I always win. That's all I do. Anyways, 15 minutes. Got it done. I am sick. I have a sinus infection. I apologize for the coughing. It is not what I want to do. Let's get back to watching these games. We will see you guys in a couple of days with the streaming options. And then don't forget, we have our rankings, the videos that will be coming out. And then we'll go live for the start sit. I appreciate everybody checking out the video. Until the next one,